My name is Jennifer Pike.
And I'm Nika Dean, and we're talking about Yavapai College.
Okay.
Why did you choose Yavapai College?
Well, because I moved here with my daughter in '93, and I decided to change my career, and I needed to go back to school. I already had a degree from the California College of Arts and Crafts in Oakland, and I needed to do some prerequisites in order to do a master's in special education.
All right, so what kind of prereqs did you take here?
Well, I had to print it out because it's been a long time. So I had to take math for elementary school teachers 1 and 2, and then I had to take college composition 2, which I hadn't taken, I guess, before. Maybe it was too old. And I took natural history of the Southwest, history of Arizona, and intro to astronomy and the lab, those were all good courses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember most from all those classes you had to take?
Well, I remember a couple things from a couple of different ones. From the, I remember going and looking at all the stars in astronomy because I had done that before, and so that was really cool because we got to study the stars, and that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, the math class, the year of that was really, really hard, and I remember having to ask the teacher questions, and I used to be good in algebra. But it didn't seem to stick with me. I could do the geometry stuff really well, and I did manage to eke out some of my lowest grades. I got a B in both of that whole year for math. So, but I remember that it was really hard, and I thought, oh my gosh! And then I ended up actually student teaching in math and teaching math at junior high for a while. So it's a good thing I had that class, and it kind of helped me remember everything for a while. But my one of my favorite classes was, let's see, the natural history of the Southwest, I think, was it. And we went on, we studied a lot of the geological rocks, and we went on a couple field trips, and we went to the Grand Canyon and looked at the rock formations, and then there was some rock formations out past Humboldt that were really cool, but since then they've widened the road and they ruined all the layers that you could see of the soil and stuff, and it was really, really cool. It had some great stuff. I have a book that has some of the stuff you can see from the roads, but a lot of them have been widened now, and when they widened them, somehow it's not as clear right now. Maybe after a couple of years it'll be clear to see those rock formations that were there. So that was pretty fun. And let's see, what other one? College composition was okay. You know, I'm not the best writer in the world, but I got through it okay and eked A's out of that, so that was all right. And the teacher was kind of different. She was very nice, but she was more like from the 50s, and she dressed in kind of hippie attire and had long hair at the time, so it was kind of an unusual classroom, and everybody really liked to talk in the classroom, so it was okay. Sometimes if we got her talking, we didn't have to do stuff, so that was all right. Typical kid stuff.
Yeah.
But it was going back for my second degree, so I wasn't a typical kid. I was a little old by then.
Not that old.
About 33 when I came back to school here.
What weird things did that English teacher do?
You know, I don't remember. I just remember she was kind of strange and kind of a free spirit type, you know, one of those. And, yeah. She always had the hippie attire on, and she kind of wrote funny stories, but I don't really remember the exact ones. It's been 93, so that's a long time. No, I took her in 94, spring 94. But
So did you have to take a lot of night classes, or were you able to sneak in day classes?
No, I took all night classes except for the natural history of the Southwest, because that one I think met on the weekends so that I could take it, because I had a full-time job. I had to work, so I had a job at the Sun for a while as a graphic artist, and then I transferred when they changed owners and the paper was sold to a big company. Boy, I can't even talk. It's been a long day. he had sold it, and so then I went to the Courier, and I became their classified manager. And so then I went to school at night and stayed up to about 1 o'clock every night doing homework, 1 to 2 o'clock, and then I'd get up at 8 and go to work. Lots of fun.
Oh, yeah. What was it like going to school at night and then having to deal with your kid, me, and then my grandma and grandpa on top of that?
Well, it wasn't too bad, except for one time when my daughter, Nika, got in trouble.
Oh, no, you're not going to tell that
And
one.
she was going up and down the stairs, and she had imitated everybody's cuss words. And my mom called me in the middle of the day at work and said, "Your daughter, I just had to wash her mouth out with soap." And I thought, what? And she's blowing bubbles, and I'm never going to discipline your daughter again. And I said, okay. But it was a little funny. And, you know, I'd put you to bed, and then I'd go down and do the homework after I'd put you to bed at 8 o'clock. So you always had to go to bed at 8 o'clock when you were in elementary because I had to go do homework.
I remember having to go to bed at 8 and hating it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I had to go do the homework at night. And I didn't take too many classes. I took about 2 classes a semester. A total of about, because I had to do it at night, and it was really hard. So one semester I took 7 at night. I took 7 again. So quite a few units before I could transfer to N.A.U. and do their teaching masters there.
Trying to roll over, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
So how long did it take you to get all your prereqs out of the way?
It took a year and a half to get the prereqs out of the way. And then it took another, well, I left here in fall, spring 94. I said backwards on here.
It's backwards on your paper?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Oh, convenient.
They put spring 94 ahead of fall 94. So I left here in spring 94, and then it took me 3 more years to graduate with a master's, because I had to do everything at night through N.A.U. after that.
So did you do the satellite program here?
I did do a satellite program from N.A.U. here, and it was, where was that classroom? At the very top of the hill. Mm-hmm. And you could, if you were early enough, you could drive up there and park. There was just a few spots up there. Yeah, and you could park there if you got there early enough and came a little early, and then I usually would come early and bring a sandwich for dinner. And then that was actually a psychology class, I believe. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was an education class. I don't remember what class it was. But the teacher was actually she was in Cottonwood, I think.
Oh.
And she could have been in Flag. I'm not real sure. But yeah, that was very interesting because they had the big screen, and there was about 20 of us in the class. And so we would get there, and then they had a man behind the special doors that ran everything, and he'd be in the kind of like a film room kind of thing with all the controls and everything, and he would hook us up and make sure we were all able to see the screen and able to hear everything, and did all the sound and all that. And then we had like this kind of an open line. You didn't really talk on the phone or anything. You'd have a mic, and then you would talk. She could hear the whole class because there was mics in the room.
They were like dangling from the ceiling?
I don't remember exactly. I think they were on the tables. But she could hear those, and it would be like a delay. It's kind of weird. Like if you asked her a question, you'd say, blah, 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 and then you'd wait like 20 seconds, and then she'd start talking back what her answer was from the question. And so it's kind of hard to follow because like we'd make a comment or something while she's lecturing, and then she'd have to stop, and then it'd come back, her answer, as she was doing like a lecture. So it was kind of weird.
So was there like a delay with her talking, like her mouth would move and then you'd hear words after it, kind of like a really bad dubbed movie?
No. When she talked, you could hear it at that point, but it wasn't. The whole thing was probably just delayed. Okay. So, yeah, no, it wasn't that she'd be talking and then, because that'd drive you crazy. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to take notes with her mouth going in, not the right words. That'd be really hard. Yeah. That would be very, very hard.
How many of those classes did you have to take through N.A.U.? All of them?
No, I didn't. I only took that one.
Yeah.
And she was like a school psychologist. And so We had to do a lot of group work, and
Ugh.
it was just really long because it was hard to do on the screen. It's not something, that you're used to. We didn't have, in the 93 and 94 that I went here, and even when I went to N.A.U. through the 97, we didn't really have internet classes like there are now that the college here offers, where you can take a college and take everything online. We didn't have anything like that. You either had to do the satellite or sit in the classroom.
Okay.
So they've come a long way with that.
Yeah. So was the satellite class you were in one of the first ones here, or was that maybe like the middle?
It seemed like it was one of the earlier ones.
Okay.
Not the very first ones. I don't know how long they'd had it before that. Yeah.
So you like classroom based better than the TV screen?
Well, yeah, it's a little easier because you have a little more contact with the instructor when you take a small class.
Yeah.
So it is easier, and you can get your questions answered, right away. If you wanted to ask, when we were in that class, we did use a lot of email.
Yeah.
If you were at home or you had a question, you could email her and she would email you back.
Oh.
And then our papers, we all,
Had to email?
no, we didn't email our papers. They were all turned in here, and then they mailed them to her.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of weird. They had to mail it to her. So everybody had to put it in the envelope, and then they mailed off this big envelope of everybody's paper. So you couldn't turn it in late because it had to be mailed. So you had to have it done. So
Sounds just like my chip class.
have to have it done.
Interesting,
Yeah.
So have to mail it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got all of your stuff done here, and then you graduated from N.A.U. How did that work?
Well, I transferred these credits, and then I had to also show, because I was doing a master's, I had to take all my transcripts from my first college in Oakland for the art degree, and I had to send them all those, and then the transcripts from here, and then I was admitted. And back then, N.A.U. had only 2 people in the office. I think somebody that answered the phone that was here, and they're based one here. Somebody answered the phone, and then Kay Dean was the administrator, and she told me what I had to take here because I had a meeting before going to her, and so she told me the classes I would need to take here, and then I just transferred on up to N.A.U., and it didn't seem like it was a big deal or anything. She was very helpful. Kay Dean was very helpful at that time. But yeah, there was nobody in that office, and it was upstairs on Montezuma Street, and you went up these stairs like you were going up to a bar or something, up the stairs in the middle of the street, and then there was a little tiny office over to the right. So that would be the left. That's over to the left. South. South of the steps, there was this little tiny office, and there was people that answered the phone, and then that lady there, and then she advised me to, of course I would have loved to have gotten a degree in art at the time, but she said, if you really want a job, this is what you should go into. You should go into special ed, which I wanted to do anyway, but she said you should do special ed, and you should work towards all the categories, get them all at once, which would be learning disability, behavior disability, and the MR type disability, mental retardation disabilities. And then she said you should also get a reading endorsement, which was probably one of the best classes that I took. And a lot of those classes actually we met here. We had some classrooms that were actually here, but they were N.A.U. And we would use rooms here, and we used rooms at the high school. Some of my classes were taught at Abaya Judd at night.
That's weird.
Through N.A.U. because they didn't really have any classrooms, so it was wherever they scrambled to get a classroom, that's where you went for that class.
So you stuck in little elementary school chairs?
Yeah, and they were really uncomfortable. Sometimes we'd meet in the teacher's lounge because they had a little bit better chairs instead of sitting in. The library chairs were always really short little chairs, so that would give you a real bad backache by the end of the night of sitting there and working. So yeah. So we just would have classes all over wherever they could get to teach them. But the reading endorsement classes were really probably the most interesting, and I actually even did tutoring of a student out in PV. That was really fun, so I had to go out there to her house once a week during one summer and tutor. And that was really neat classes because it gave you tools to work with students to help them do better comprehension, better understanding of the reading. And so those were really some cool classes. I think I like those probably the best at the N.A.U. once I got from here.
What did they teach you in those classes?
Just how to teach, like they taught KWOL, which is where you take what you know and you make a chart and what you think it's going to, when you look at the book and you say what you think it's going to be about and what you think the outcome will be, and then you write what you learned after you read it, and then you compare all that stuff together and do it that way. And then there's ones where you predict, you look at the front cover and you look at the pictures and you predict what the story's about before you read it. So you kind of have some pre-knowledge about the story, and that kind of helps you to understand the story better and more grasp the ideas in the story. Those kind of things. But there's like so many of them I couldn't even tell you them all. I mean, of the different kind of techniques to try. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So you finally did all this work and you got to graduate from N.A.U. even though you didn't really technically...
I never went to N.A.U. until I graduated. And then I never stepped foot on the campus at Flagstaff until the graduation, and then I graduated mid-year. And so I think they had the graduation, though, at the end of the year. And so Grandma and Grandpa, your Grandma and Grandpa, and my mom and Dad really wanted to go because we didn't really do it for my first college because it was clear up in Oakland, California, and they lived in Southern California. And I graduated in the middle of the year then, too. So I didn't go back for the graduation ceremony for my first college. So they really wanted to go to that. So we all went up there, and it took hours, and you probably remember sitting there. Graduation ceremonies always take a long time, and there was a lot of people graduating.
It was a huge
lot
class.
of people. Yeah.
There's like 2 signers on each side.
Yeah, they had sign people there, and that was pretty cool. Now that I know more sign, it would have been funner to watch it now than before.
Yeah.
I went and got my teaching credential in special ed, and so I did my practicum at the middle school at Mile High, and the teacher that I was teaching with got cancer that year, and I'd done my practicum with her, Ellie Bergstam, and she passed away while I was doing the student teaching, and so she passed away before school really even started, and so they kept sending subs, which wasn't really kosher to have a sub for a student teacher to be with, and then a couple of times they didn't even have a sub, which really wasn't kosher. And so then they decided, N.A.U. decided there was another opening at Miller Valley, and they needed a teacher there also, so I finished my student teaching at Miller Valley in the, at that time it was full of all variety of kids. We had the severe and profound students, we had the MR students, mental retardation severely, and then we had clear up to the mildly mentally retarded students. We had Down students, we had autistic students, we had quite a few even behavioral students that were in the classroom, and so I finished out my student teaching there, and then I was hired on there, and at that point I had 2 teachers in the room with about 17 kids and 8 aides.
That's a lot of people.
At Miller Valley. So then we went along like that. Yeah, it is a lot of people. We went along like that in the room until Ellen McGowan, who is in the Yavapai Orchestra, I believe she still plays the flute in that here. Yeah. She came and was my second teacher, so we were team teaching, and we kind of got to the point where it was too crowded, and we had to get principals to accept another classroom into the other schools so that we could split it apart, and so the higher functioning mental retardation and the Downs and a lot of the higher functioning autistic kids were split into several groups, and we left the severe and profound at Miller Valley, and the other classes went to 2 to 3 years at Taylor Hicks, and then they had to transfer to a Bio-Jed because we just couldn't find enough classrooms to put them in, and the program kept growing. Right now we have about 12 students in each group. My group only has 6 right now, but the other 2 students have about 12 to 13 students each, which would have made up 24 plus 6, 28, 29, 28 to 29 students in the room where I'm at now, which would have been way too difficult, and the kids wouldn't have been able to really have any one-on-one teaching or any kind of, it just would have been chaos. There just would have been too many students in a room that needed help, and it wouldn't have worked. So we were really lucky that we were able to talk a couple principals into accepting us, and So now we've even split again. This last couple years we split again, and now we also have two autistic classrooms, and they right now have about 5 to 6 students each. So the numbers would be somewhere into almost up to 40 with the amount of kids that we have in the program, which we call the best program right now. It's building essential skills and techniques for students.
And what do you try to teach the kids, and how does that correlate with what you learned from your master's, or do they even match up?
Well, some of the reading endorsement I can use. I had to go to a lot of seminars because you have to find some way to teach these kids, and they're not even normal special ed kids because they're in the severe range. You have to really do different modalities to try to help them to learn. And so I took a lot of seminars. Anytime I heard about a good seminar, I would try to go to it. I went to one at Disneyland once, which you were dying to come to, but they wouldn't let you. And that was on communication circles, which really helped because most of my class right now I need to focus on a communication system for each student because they have no language, or very little language. So some of them do sign, some of them do what I learned at one of the seminars, and then the speech teacher also helped to teach some of those seminars to my staff and things, to use the picture exchange system, which is a form of visual communication that a child can use to communicate their needs and wants or just have a conversation. And so those are the kind of systems that we use. We also use sign language in the classroom, and a lot of them understand just regular, your regular verbal. Like, I don't have to sign everything to those students. They can understand my verbal words, and I don't have to do a picture for them of everything I'm asking them because they know where to answer. They know what I'm asking and how to answer the question on a lot of students, which is really great.
Okay. So in your classroom you have to use the picture cards and sign language. How do you always have to think of new innovative ways to teach because you get different students all the time?
I do. Whenever a new student comes in, I have to figure out things that'll work for that student. I have to just try different things, and then if they don't work, I come up with new ideas like the soundboard and the sound room for the student that was what we thought when he was 5 years old. We thought he was actually blind and deaf because he never looked at anybody. He didn't respond to loud noises, the door slamming. You could, clap right next to him and he wouldn't respond or even do a startle. So we thought that he was blind and deaf, and so we started worked with the Blind Center. I'm able to pull in a lot of resources, so I pulled in the people from the Blind Center down in Phoenix, and they came up and gave me some ideas, and I had already come up with the soundboard in the little room, and they said, put them together, which I hadn't been doing. I'd been doing them separate, and they said, put these two things together and you'll give them even a more different modality way of exploring their environment kind of thing. So they were a big help. And then I've had, we actually qualified one year to become a target classroom when Southwest Human Development went around, and they helped classrooms use assistive technology, and that includes, we also use recorded switches. So that would include recorded switches, special keyboards for kids to use technology, touch screens on computers so that they can access programs on computers and use those. So we were able to kind of open that up, and it really helped because I had a staff at that time that would, when you asked a student a question, they'd answer it, and so it really helped to train the staff that you need to give the child time to respond, and that was a huge thing to teach my staff to learn how to do, is to give that child, it's going to take them a while to process your question, give them time to answer it. So instead of bombarding them every second, like, what's this number? What's this number? You know this number. What's this number? What's this number? That kind of is so much bombarding of questions that if you stop and count to 10 or 12, and some kids maybe it might take 20 seconds, if they can stop and count to that, and that target classroom really helped with that. And we took movies of what we were doing, and then we would look back at the movies, and then we had somebody come in and criticize what we were doing and saying, if you did this, this would work better for this child. You need to open this up more for this child and give them more time, or only give them so many choices, which, or maybe give them more choices. give them the available switch so that they can answer with a pre-recorded switch, that kind of thing. And then they kind of showed, really helped with the staff to understand, to kind of just slow down. We don't go as fast. We kind of go a lot slower than a normal classroom would go because the kids are not as capable of going that fast. They need time to respond, time to figure out how they're going to answer it and what modality they're going to use. Are they going to use the switch? Are they going to use a sign? Are they going to try to partly say the word with "ba"? Or are they going to, nod their head yes? Or are they going to pick a card? What are they going to do? So you just have to kind of find those different ways for those students so that they can respond and communicate and do that communication circle.
So do your kids have to learn multiple languages, like the pet cards, then they have to learn about the switches, and then they have to learn verbal?
Well, yeah, actually.
Is there another language?
Yeah, they actually do. I mean, I have 2 students who have, one, they only speak Spanish at home, and the other, mostly they speak a language from India called Khazari. And so that student actually is trying to learn English. They're learning Khazari at home. They're learning the PEC system. They're learning, did I say sign language? They're doing sign language and how to use switches and voice recorded things. So, they're using they're learning 5 different things, which is a lot for a severe and profound student to learn, but they're doing it not as fast as a normal student. And it might take us, 8 years to get them up to where they might be able to have a conversation with you, but still, that's a lot to learn for a student. So, yeah, I have 2 students that have about 5 languages going on.
So are the PECs and the sign language technically like a different kind of language?
Yeah.
They're both visual?
Yeah, they are a different kind of language because the sign you have to learn how to do, the sign. And some of theirs are modified. Like I have kids that can't use one hand, so they'll only do half the sign of thank you. And so, and then they have to learn what the pictures represent. And they have to learn that this card means drink, or this card means popcorn, or and then once they learn the pictures and they can hand you the picture or point to it or even look at it, then you can go on to sentence strips and putting their pictures in sentences. So then you might have they might have a book, and they might go in the book, and we might be doing a shopping thing. So they'd go in the book and they'd pull out what they wanted in the pictures area of the book. And then close the book and put that picture on after it says, I want doll. And then they might have to give me the sign for how much money, or they might point to the picture on the next thing. And then, if you were actually in the store, you might say 25 cents. We were doing 25 cents, 50 cents, and $1. And so then I would have those cards out representing a quarter, 50 cents with 2 quarters, and a $1 bill. And I'd tell them verbally, that doll costs 50 cents. And I'd hold my hand out, and then they'd have to put that card, the correct card for that, in my hand, and then they would get to buy the doll. And that's we call that kind of a communication notebook. But it's just totally, it would be like if you had the version of it electronically, only it's low tech. So anyway, yeah, that's part of the picture exchange, to get them to be able to carry a notebook so that they could go out into the community and be able to communicate. So that's really my highest priority. I do math. I mean, I do one-on-one correspondence with numbers. I do calendar, so we are counting to 31 most months. And they're doing the days of the week like other kids do. Just like you would do a regular circle in a regular classroom, we're doing pretty much all those activities. We do patterns and shapes. We do with visuals that you can put on a back. They've got a sticky back, so you can give the kids a choice. Like if you want to do a pattern, triangle, circle, square, triangle, and you want to know what's next, you give them a choice depending on how much they can look at one time. Some of my kids can only do 2 cards at a time. Some can do 3. Some can do a page full of 50. So it just depends on the student's level. So whoever I'm working with, that's how many cards I give them to choose from. And then they tell me what is next in that pattern on the board. And we do the months. We do all the months. We do all the days. We do a number of the week. We do a letter of the week. So we work on math, and we do the ABCs with several of the kids. Some of the kids we don't. Some of the kids we're just working on getting them to do the cards, choose what they want to do so that they can associate that card with an actual physical object. And some of them we're not to that point yet. So it depends on the student on how far we are on that. But,
okay. So in your master's program, did they teach you like how to deal with your type of classroom has anywhere from like really low level, like age 0 thinking mentality to I don't know how high it goes, but
about 3-4-year-old. Yeah, 3 to 4-year-old. No, not really. Those were just kind of on the job figuring it out, and then a lot of those seminars that I found that were just put on by excellent people. You know, sometimes you have to go clear to California to go to one, but a lot of them were down in Phoenix. A lot of them were down in Phoenix. And then I even hosted a couple at Miller Valley for other teachers to come to. And sometimes Prescott Valley had holds some. So Chino hasn't ever held any, but they're not that big of a school district. I think they're quite a bit smaller.
Yeah, Prescott's pretty big, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, we have, gosh, I had that number on the top of my head now. I can't think of it. Well, my school has about 428 students at present.
Counting yours?
Counting my kids, yeah, for the whole school. So some of the elementaries are only like probably 300, 200, depending on how many levels. And some are bigger where they're 4 levels, so they're probably on upwards of 600 students just for the elementaries. So.
For your classroom, do you have to split up the room into different sections to make sure the kids stay focused, or are they easily distracted?
They are really easily distracted, but I use a lot of music, and mostly that will draw them back. They'll focus with music. I do a lot of the songs that are teaching how to do money in a song, and we do some visual boards that have the PECs on it. They're called song boards, and they have different choices for them to pick, and some of them have like a tree you can swing, and we count backwards and forwards from 1 to 3 on that for 3 little monkeys swinging in a tree, and that covers quite a few of the state actual goals for them. It covers communication because they're doing a communication circle. They're interacting. They're doing a lot of the math, number sense type things, and then they're doing a lot of that PEC system where they're taking off and putting on cards onto that board or handing them to someone. So we do a lot of hands-on kind of activities with music, and that usually helps them. And then when I do a one-on-one time with the kids, and at that point, everybody's kind of in a separated area. We have some things partitioned off because they're really distractible, and so that you can work, and you have to work with them right in front of them. You don't work behind them or to the side. You work right in front of the student so that they can see you right there, and you're interacting with them. So you have to sit right across the table from them or their wheelchair or whatever, so you're not off to the side. So they don't really have a chance to not focus on what you're working on.
So a lot of the stuff like learning how to get the kids to focus and that kind of thing wasn't from, let's say, like Yavapai. It was more from the seminars and just being dropped in
and
the
hands-on
class.
and being dropped in the class, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and kind of figuring it out. Yeah. And then a lot of the kids have a lot of visual problems, so you have to, I got a lot of ideas from going down to the Blind Center. I went down there and I talked to some of the people down there, and they gave me some ideas. And then I have we have a district person from the Department of Developmental Disabilities, and they come in and they're a vision specialist, and they come in and they give us ideas like, with the cortical vision, you kind of don't see. I have 2 students with that. And like if I was to look directly in the camera, they might not see that. Maybe they'd see a blur around here. They might see a little section over here in this corner of the film.
So they'd
of the
see
camera.
like double of the circle of the camera, or
No, they would. If you were looking on a screen where you had a film and there was somebody talking, they might just see a little corner of that person. They would not see my face. They would not see the blue background. They might just see a little corner of my red shirt over here. Or the whole thing might be blurry, so blurry that it's really hard to make anything out. And it depends on how it's really hard to tell how their brain processes that visual. So I got a lot of help from them, and then a couple of I work with a lot of people in my classroom. I have my aides, and then I have a speech therapist who brings in a lot of ideas on how to work with the kids. And she might go to a seminar and see something new, or I might go to a seminar and then we work together on getting that together. And then for a lesson for the kids. And then I have a PT and an OT, so we're doing...
You better explain what that is.
Physical therapist comes in and helps with the child's whole body, walking, balance, works on... A lot of the kids need to be stretched because of their muscles are really stiff, or they have several syndromes where it makes it really hard to move. They have a lot of cerebral palsy, which makes it so maybe one of their hands doesn't open and they're always like just grabbing it really tight. And so they come in and they give us things to do with that hand so it doesn't get worse and more. So they couldn't use it. We want to be able to use it in some way during their lifetime and not have it just a limb that's not anything that they could use. So, and then the OT is occupational therapy, and they come in and they help, not things at home, but they might help with feeding. The speech therapist also helps with feeding and chewing and how to process the food. The therapist for occupational therapy would help them to write. They might even help them with whole body if they were at that point where, they didn't have a lot of balance. They might do some walking balance with them so that if you can do the big gross motor, then that helps you to do the fine motor. And so they come in. And so I take a lot of instruction from them because they're specialists in that area. And I've learned quite a bit, and sometimes I have to kind of keep my eye on them. But most of the time, they're pretty good with what they're showing us to do with the kids and stuff. So.
Why do you have to keep your eye on them?
Oh, sometimes they get a little, they don't look at the whole picture of the child. And they think, well, you should be doing this with them, or they should be doing that. And it really has nothing to do with anything the child would need to do in the classroom or something like that. So kind of just make sure that we've got it classroom-centered.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the ultimate goal for these kids?
Well, the ultimate goal is that they can, legally, the law says that they're able to have a free and appropriate education, and they can stay until their 22nd birthday because they have an IEP. So my goal is to give them some social skills, some ways to communicate, because if you can't communicate, it's really hard to do a whole lot. And then we work on a lot of life skills. Eventually, some of the kids may be able to work for the Yavapai Regional Handicapped Industries. I don't remember quite the name quite right, but they're just right down here down the street. And they do little jobs there, so maybe some of them will be able to do that. Some of them may not be able to. They may have to go into a home with other people, but at least if I can get them some form of communication, they'll be able to communicate with people. And we do a lot of games and things like, we take the kids out bowling, and so that they could actually have a recreational game that they could play with other people for leisure time. So I try to give them something for leisure, something for eating time. And then we're still working, we still work on the educational goals, the reading, and we don't do a lot of writing. With some of them I do, but a lot, because they have CP so bad, it's really, that's a really hard thing for them to do, the cerebral palsy.
Okay.
That's a really hard thing for them to do because their hands are cramped up and they can't get it to move right. The muscles don't work like yours or my hand would work. So it's really hard for them. So, they work on numbers and trying to read. We do signs for safety. We go out into the community and help them to buy things because that might be something they might do. So we try to teach them how to do that. So the main goal is to get them somewhere to the highest. I want to get them to the highest part that I can get them to their highest functional level that they can be at. So that they're doing the best they can do for what they have. So I try to get them to that point before I send them to the high school.
Okay. Well, what's the best part of teaching your classroom?
Probably the kids. They are just so exuberant and so excited about, if they get something right, they're ready to clap. We always do a clap and a thumbs up. And if they think they've done a really good job, they might be giving me this. See, I did it. And they're really happy and their faces are happy. And they just really want to be there. They want to do stuff, and they're really thrilled to come in. Like at the beginning of the year, when they're coming in, they're just so happy to be there. And yeah, And so they're just really a lot of fun. And I try to make a difference in each child's life, some kind of a positive difference that I can do, some skill that I can give them, some kind of caring, something that they can do later on that they'll be able to accomplish is what I try to give to each child, something. And I know that when they're with me, they're safe and they've got things to do, where a lot of them, it's really hard to raise a child like that. I mean, you have a lot of stress. Most of my parents are not married. I only have 2 parents that are married, and only one of them is the father of the child.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a real high divorce rate, really hard on parents to stay together with a child like that. And it's a lot of work for a single parent. So, you know, I try to give them as much as I can, the most experiences that I can give them, and that kind of thing. But they're just really great kids. And it takes, some of them it's really kind of hard because you don't see a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And so those are really hard. And so you just have to keep trying and keep thinking of creative ideas. So I like to create as much as I can a new idea and kind of go with that. And then, you know, if it works, great. If it doesn't work, well, then we go on to the next creative idea and try that one. So with like books and stuff, almost all the kids love books. They love to be read to. They love to be able to tell you part of that story. So the way I do that is I have manipulatives for all the books. Either I've made copies of the book and blow it up on a big chart, like it might be the old lady who swallowed a shell, like. And so I would blow her up so I could put her on clear paper, laminate, and then I'd have her on one of my, what do you call those things? They're like room divider kind of things. It's like a chart holder. So I'd put them on that, and then I'd take parts of the book, like the crab and the shell and the bucket and the sand and the wave, and I blow them all up, and then I laminate those, and then I give each of the students get to pick who they want to be in that story. And so they pick one of those objects, and then we record the switches to say, I don't know why she swallowed the shell. She didn't tell. And so they get to read that part of the story on every page where we get to that. And then whoever turn it is gets to feed her. And because it's clear plastic, they can kind of put it in her mouth and it looks like she's eating it. And so they feed her the shell and the crab and the sand and the wave and all that. When it's their turn, we carry that around the room so that they can each do that in a circle. And so that's like one of the modified books that I have. I have other modified books where we just have stuffed things that they've already been pre-made and they're sewn, and so they get to put those up on the board or on I have these triangular carpet covered kind of boards that you can sit on a desk, and they're kind of slanted, and that way the students can pick those up and choose what they want off of that goes next in the story. I'll say, well, is it Silly Sally next, or is it the sheep or the pig? Who's next? And they can pick who's next and put them up on the board, and then they get to read the repeating lines. So I love books with repeating lines, because that way, every time I get to that repeating line in a single switch, I can have them, I just make that switch available to the student, and they know after we've read that story a couple times that it's their turn to hit that switch, and then they get to read part of that book to me, and then they help turn the pages. So books are really, almost all the kids in my classroom love to do a book. And then I have some switches that'll do the whole book. So I would record that whole story into the book. So I would record it page by page so that when we turn a page, then I'd make the switch available, and they touch the switch and it reads that page. And then I have them help me turn the next page, and they read. So they may read that whole book to me if I have it recorded into the switch. So they really, really like those. And I have one student with a communication board, but it's really hard for her. So we'll keep working with it and see how that. But she loves the switches, but not so much the big box. With all it has, it's a communication device, and it's a big box and very heavy, about this big. It's electronic, and it has recorded pictures in it with voices. And this particular box, some of the boxes you can get with they're already loaded up, and you just take it to the page you want. It's a recorded voice. Electronic. This one you have to record the voices in it. It's really difficult to program up. Oof. And so it's really hard. But you can make it have just two choices, or 6 choices, or 8 choices, or 30 choices, depending on the student. And hers has a lot of choices, but it has about 8 to 9 choices on hers. But the hard part is that because of her cerebral palsy, it's hard for her. She can't just point to it and go, click, this is the one. And then she also has the cortical vision, so she can't really, half the time you don't know if she really sees it because it's kind of hard to see. It's like looking at your computer. It's kind of dark, and depending on how you have the angle, it might look really black, unless you angle it upright. So you have to really work with that communication box for her to be able to use it, and then we do hand in her hand because it is too hard. With the switches, she can hit a big switch because most of my switches are this big. I have a couple that are about 2 inches, but most of them are about 4 to 5 inches across, and and they're bright colored, so they're really easy for them to access, and they can get those with their whole hand instead of just a pointer. And so they actually work really, really well, and the kids really love being able to communicate that way because it's really fun. They just hit the switch and then they've read something, so they all think it's pretty cool.
So where did the switches come from? Did you learn about them in college, or did you learn about them when you got dropped onto the job?
I don't really remember exactly where. It could have been from an assistive technology conference. We used to have really big ones. I get catalogs with all kinds of equipment for the kids in it, and I just have to figure out how could I use that. I did actually have, when I moved into the room, there was a kind of a rocker switch, and it had 2. You hit one side and it said one thing, and you hit the other side and it said the other thing. And then I ordered the big switches after that. But it's taken me years to get. I think I have about 8 switches in the room now, and 2 of them you can record a whole book in, and the other ones are just the big ones that are just one answer, and it repeats that line. It just does the one line. So one touch, one read, where the other ones you can do page, 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 page as you hit it. And then I have I think I have 2 smaller ones that'll do different levels. And then I also have some huge boxes now. But it's taken me about 10 years to really accumulate those because for a long time I didn't have a budget. And then sometimes I'd have money, sometimes I didn't. And they usually run about $120, $130, $140 a piece. So they're not cheap, and it's not easy to come up with that kind of money. So luckily now we're in the budget finally. Hopefully we'll stay there with the shortages. I don't know what will happen right now, but hopefully we'll still have that money coming in to buy switches and assistive technology. But assistive technology is really, really important, and there really wasn't any classes in that. I should teach one.
You should.
I should. Yeah, I should get together and teach one here at the college for people so that they could know how to do it, and it would be great.
Be good at it.
Yeah. So my whole family has come to Yavapai College now, except for my father, who is a retired lawyer. But my mom used to come. She helped work to get the retirement college going here, and her name was Judith Pike, and she helped to get that kind of going. And she used to facilitate college classes for people and help line up interesting things to take. And she would come down here all the time and take those classes in the retirement college when they kind of opened. I don't know what they call it specifically, but she called it the retirement college, and they did a lot of facilitations themselves and had several people. She did a ballet class and an opera class that she taught or facilitated, and I don't know what else she did.
She did a bunch of
but
stuff.
she really liked doing that. But she's not able to do it anymore. She's too sick and has Alzheimer's, so she couldn't remember how to get here. So, and we don't let her drive. So
that's bad news.
Yeah. So
crashed down the garage door.
Yeah, last time she drove, she crashed down the garage door. So Alzheimer's is really hard to see a parent like that get that, because she was such a smart woman. I mean, she had 2 degrees, a master's degree, a degree in biology back in the day, and then she went back to school when I was a kid and drove to L.A. every day and went to the University of L.A., whichever that's called. L.A.? I don't know what they call it. No, that's here. Anyway, she went there and drove practically every day when I was a kid and became a librarian, went back to school and got her master's in that, and then never really got to do it much because she had a job at the library, but my dad wasn't too keen on not having her home all the time, so she ended up not doing it and hung out with us kids mostly.
How did Grandma influence your decision to teach and actually become a teacher? Did she do anything?
She didn't really influence me any. My brother tried to talk me out of it.
Uncle
He
Chris.
said it was, yeah. My brother said it was not something you want to go into, that you don't get much money, you don't get treated too well, you don't get a lot of that. So he didn't want me to do that. But the good part is, do you want to ask me that?
Well, you won Teacher of the Year in this year, 2008. So how does that feel, and how has it affected you so far?
Well, it feels really terrific to have someone say, you know, you're doing a great job. We're really incredible. It's just incredible to feel that way, to have people tell you that. And to have someone that's not at your school. And a lot of the people at my school don't even know what I do. So, you know, they really have no clue. And so to get that, and to get it in special ed, which is not a category that usually wins. It's usually a regular ed teacher, although I teach, my class is from, I have the kids all day. It's not like a resource room. I have them from the minute they get off the special ed bus, I take them in the room until it's time for the bus to pick them up and take them home. So they're never left alone in my room. So it's totally different kind of atmosphere. And people don't really know that we are working on state link goals and things like that in there. It's really, really exciting to get that, as you know. And then I knew a couple people on the board. Well, I knew one person on the board and one person that interviewed me, and they had actually been in my classroom. So they really had a good idea of what I did, and then what I had written up for that interview board was good enough for them to be able to understand what I was trying to tell them, how I taught, and how you have to, you know, use your creativity and try everything in the world that you think might work and come up with new ways to teach. So it was really exciting to have them kind of give me the stamp of approval. So it was really cool, and kind of was able to show people that didn't think, you know, you're just babysitting there. You know, why should those kids be in school? It kind of validated that, yeah, they're doing something. We're working as hard as we can with them, and we always have a good time doing it. So we've kind of had, since I got the award, my staff hasn't really wanted to work too much. So we've had a lot of parties, a lot of lunches, a lot of, well, we had our field trips at the end of the year anyway, so we got to go bowling, which we would have done anyway. So that was kind of a party. And then we went to the lake, Watson Lake, and we were able to, with the help of some of the PE teachers that do adaptive PE and have done adaptive PE with us before, we were able to put the kids on a raft that you would take down the Colorado River and go around the lake for an hour. We had tug-of-wars for our adaptive PE day at Watson Lake. We had a big barbecue, and we had some ball fights with wet balls where you throw them, and the kids got to throw them at me. They thought that was really funny. Because I didn't really want them to get all wet because it was kind of cloudy and I didn't want anybody to get sick. So I said, okay, I'm the target. Go ahead, see if you can hit me with the ball. So so we've kind of done that, and then we had a big luncheon today, and the girls bought me lunch another day. So we've just been celebrate. I got about 3.5 dozen roses and a lot of cards telling people telling me, congratulations, you got Yavapai County Teacher of the Year 08, and we're really proud of you, and that kind of thing. So it's been really nice to really be able to say, yeah, I did it. I was able to tell them what I did, and they were able to see what I did enough to see that, yeah, she's really doing a great job. And I competed against about 47 teachers to get that honor, and it's just been an honor, and it's a privilege to be named that for the year, like being a princess or a queen, whichever you want to call. You know. So it's been really, really, really cool.
Very cool.
Big honor.
Has Yavapai College kind of affected the way you've looked at all the problems you had in the class? Has it helped you?
Well, college always helps. I went to a junior college for my first degree too, and it always helps you to. You have to figure out what people need from you, what you have to do to get that grade. You have to figure out. So that's always a help. College is always a help. And, you have to figure out what does this teacher want? How can I come up with something that this teacher will say, yeah, that's what I was talking about, and being able to listen. You have to really be able to listen and kind of process things, and that always helps with everything you do in life. Oh, and then my daughter also goes here, of course, And she got to be in the honor program here, which is really great. So my mom, myself, and my daughter, 3 generations, have come here to Yavapai College and enjoyed being able to access all the knowledge that's here and available. So that's been great.
I think our time is up.
Our time is up. All right.
Thanks, Mom.
Well, thank you, Nika. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.